Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are still live from the Super Brand Mall here in Shanghai, China. But the next match is going to be taking place in Xi'an, where Team WE will play from their home arena up against RNG. I am joined by the analyst Indiana FLICKR in black. This is a rematch of the semi-finalist teams for the LPL from the World Championship last year. However, very different stories for the two of them at the moment.
Yeah, effectively, this is the king versus the emperors. You have Royal Never Give Up. Now, I don't want to rewrite the current situation. RNG are heavily favored. Now, before we get into this, though, Fish, we must talk about the ban phase on the bottom of our screen. This is the very first time that I've looked at it. I have not cheated. I have not looked ahead. We are going to be jumping into this game, I believe it's 6 minutes.
Yes, I cheated. I know what they are.
Oh, okay. I need to... So you're going to have to talk right now. I need to look at this.
Yeah, so for the side of Team WE, they picked Ash, Tom Kench to bottom lane, Nara in the top lane, with LeBlanc in the mid lane as well, Sejuani heading to the jungle. For the side of RNG, they're playing Abel as the AD carry and Kasa as their jungler for this match. It's going to be Ezreal as well as Rakan in the bottom lane, Trundle in the jungle, Vladimir in the mid lane for Xiaohu, as well as Cho'Gath in the top lane.
So grabbing the Cho'Gath again is the immediate pick that stands out for me for RNG. The last time that we saw it, Let Me played it in tandem with Rakan. Now you see it in Rakan this time around, but it's not a 2v2 bottom lane. At least I assume. I have not seen the game yet. I assume that it's the Cho'Gath in the top lane, and they're playing a traditional front-to-back style of composition, really empowering Abel, which is what it was interesting to me looking at RNG versus Team WE's lineups and their rosters, because Abel was starting as opposed to running the two top laners, Zatai and Let Me, which has been majority of their games since Uzi left.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the match, because that match started at 7 o'clock sharp Beijing Standard Time. So let's go into the match ASAP. We're going to start at 6 minutes into game 1 that's being played out of Xi'an. This is the match between RNG as well as Team WE. Now, you mentioned Zatai as well as Let Me playing together most recently for RNG, swapping between mid lane, bottom lane, as well as top side of the map. But they're going to be starting with Abel for this match against WE. Do you think this is the right move coming out from RNG?
I think it's nice, but hold up. I think Ming's going to go for an engagement here, because here comes Karsa.
Bit of aggression. They're trying to lock down 694 on Tom Kench. Pops to Grey Health, should be just fine. RNG gets some good damage onto the bottom lane duo.
So yeah, in terms of starting Abel, now I had some suspicions here, and unfortunately we didn't get to see the draft phase, but the thing about RNG that seems to be missing from their champion pools right now, or the noticeable gap, is the lack of Swain being played. They've only played one Swain between their 8-man roster right now. It was in the mid lane on Xiaohu. He does have 100%. Now, don't get me wrong, Swain is still occasionally banned against RNG, and I'm not saying that they cannot play it, just that they haven't shown it right now in the propensity to the rest of the LPL. And when you look at Abel, he has this signature pick of playing the Yasuo, the very first guy to pull out the Yasuo in the bottom lane before the rest of the bruisers were doing everything, before Split started in Demacia Cup.
Yep.
And on the other side, even though Mystic is playing the Ashe this game, he has been a big proponent of the mages. He's grabbed hold of the Swains, of the Orianas, and so I felt that not only were they not finding the right synergy between Let Me, between Zatai, and it wasn't working, and so yes, it makes sense to go back to a style with an ADC that they know how to play with Uzi, but also the fact that Abel has that Yasuo pick as kind of a, if you take the Swain WE, because we've seen that you've been grabbing it more often, that I'll play the Yasuo and I'll be a hard counter in that 2v2 lane.
Which to me was still a little bit surprising, because if you're running around with Let Me, Zatai, as well as Xiao, you'd expect one of these three Muppets to at least pick up Swain from time to time, but hasn't been the case for RNG. I like that you mentioned playing with Abel allows them to transition back to Uzi a little bit better, because if you were to draft a team in the LPL right now from scratch, you'd probably pick Uzi most of the time as the first pick.
You'd pick him every time as
every single time. Just take Uzi, so it makes sense that they'll want to adapt to that moving towards playoffs and a similar playstyle, which Abel can bring to the table. Side of WE though, starting with Mystic, they're trying to use him more as the starting AD carry for the team, with 9.7 Conde as well as Seer. So it's a few pieces of Exodia connected, but no their support of Ben. It's going to be 694, previously known as Celestial, who did play during Spring Split.
And what's really interesting is that we talk a lot about the 8-man roster coming out of RNG. Although, hold up again, I don't think anything will transpire from this.
It's just a catfish.
Just walk it off. But Team WE are in a very similar situation where they're constantly grabbing these pieces. If they're grabbing Mystic, if they're grabbing Gentle, Imp, if they're grabbing Missing, or 694, like you were talking about, previously known as Celestial, or even Ben. Like, this is a massive roster. But whereas RNG feel that they're doing it to weaponize more of their versatility, their flexibility, and building out an arsenal of, you don't know if we're going to play 2 junglers and run a funnel style comp, you don't know if we're going to play 2 top laners and run the meat grinder composition, and you don't know if we're going to play 2 ADCs and run our hyper carry comp that we succeeded with at MSI versus Team WE who are juggling. You know, they're trying to find out what type of roster will put out the fire, because right now they're sitting 2-8 in the LPL standings.
Which is crazy to think, because WE semi-finalists falling down, only picking up their second win earlier in this week against Suning. Instead of RNG, I like that you mentioned that too, because Rusty talks about it all the time. Internationals, you can only bring one substitute player. RNG have gone to 2 different international tournaments this year, both times bringing a different substitute and using them frequently. We saw at MSI, you know, they brought both their junglers, swapping them in and out. This time for Rift Rivals, swapping out top side of the map.
Yep. Hold on though, Karsa's waiting for the distortion to be used.
Let's see if we go for a gank. Xiaohu's on Vladimir in the mid lane. So he is trying to step a little bit far forward and get some harass.
There
Good
it goes.
damage.
There comes
Distortion
Pillar.
comes out. Karsa jumps in, but Mimic's going to get Sia back to safety.
Don't you just love laning against LeBlanc?
The old new old LeBlanc.
The old new old LeBlanc. How many times do you get to say that? Now, of course, the power dynamic will start to tip towards Xiaohu now that he's closer to level 9, has more points, and can just automatically push. And of course, LeBlanc, even though she does have the Mimic, she's very safe in the lane, still needs to use a lot of those abilities, extend herself to push forward and match Vladimir's rotation. Now, Vladimir specifically for Xiaohu has kind of felt like a band-aid situation. We talk about, while you're always going to grab hold of Uzi, you know, you have the free reign of the roster. Who do you grab to start your super team of the LPL? You go ahead and grab Uzi. But it used to be that you grab Xiaohu. Xiaohu was so strong in 2016, started to fall off in 2017 a little bit towards summer, and now 2018 has just been a really horrific year for him. And unless he's on a champion like Vladimir or Zoe, you just aren't seeing that same star talent that we know is in this mid laner. And I've said this before, I'm going to keep repeating it until I see it. RNG, yeah, technically they're the best team in the world, but what's so scary about them is that they still have that next level, that next gear that they can push it into drive, and it starts with Xiaohu being the cherry on top. If Uzi and Xiaohu are both in their world-class form, like we saw from Xiaohu in 2016, no one stops this team.
And that's just 2 of them. I mean, you still got the rest of the roster to look through, and all of them can do that exact same thing, which is take it to the next level, go into the next gear, and take teams down that they otherwise should not be able to. But small skirmish taking place here over Rift Hill. He's been able to catch out Karsa. Easy kill coming out for WE. That's the first blood as well. Xiaohu being collapsed upon. Tom Kench, we try to rotate there, but uses the Sanguine Pool as well as their flash to get back to safety. However, good pick from WE. They get 1 onto Karsa.
And also good collapse from Team WE. So we kind of also have to reiterate on some of the narratives. We talk about Team WE. They used to be the Elder Dragon team. They used to be very slow to react. And that's been true to an extent in 2018 summer. But actually, if you look at them statistically, Team WE are fine until 20-25 minutes. They're not actually falling behind many of the LPL teams. And it feels like right now, one of their big issues is that these key team fights happen and they just fumble on individual mechanics. You know, either Mystic is late to the rotation or someone misses a key skill shot and then the game just explodes, blows open, and they never confront a comeback. But things like this, you know, we're 12 minutes into the game, they have first blood. This is actually much more common of Team WE. Their early game has started to shore up, especially with bringing Condi back into the roster.
Which is, it was the right move right there. They dropped aggro Rift Herald, moved over, picked a pick onto Karsa and settled for that, burning Xiaohu's flash as well on the back half of that. And during the World Championships last year, WE showed that they were not just a late game team. They could occasionally bring out an early game strategy. Used to use Caitlyn quite effectively in that aspect.
And a lot of that was unlocked not just by the Caitlyn pick, but also by Condi. You know, Condi, we always said he was kind of the make or break for Team W. If he played early, they would play early, but hold on, Ming.
Big fight. 694. It's going to call him 957 for a second. He's able to gobble up Mystic, flashes over the wall. RNG were looking for a pick, but Tom Kench just keeps champions way too safe.
And kind of back to the point, a lot of Team WE fans were looking at Condi rejoining the roster in summer of 2018 and thought, okay, it's time for Team WE to return to that semi-finalist Worlds form, and it just didn't happen. They fell flat on their face repeatedly, and it feels like there's really been a desync between Condi and the rest of the team, whether he's not synergizing with Xie as effectively, whether Mystic and whoever it is in his bottom lane isn't rotating correctly for him. But, you know, as time goes by, as Condi finds his comfort, especially on a pick like Sejuani, which is fairly binary in how you want to play out the team fights, suddenly you're starting to see Team WE return to that form.
Better late than never, because spring split as well as the early half of summer, it's all been about experimenting with their roster using different players, and as you were talking about earlier, a band-aid solution most of the time. So if they can use Condi at this solidified roster a little bit longer, might give them enough time to make that late run for playoffs and go back to the form they used to be known for.
I also think that the 8-13 meta is starting to stabilize, and that's helping Team WE. The fact that Gnar is coming back into meta seeing huge success over in the LCK, because Team WE were playing Gnar before anyone else globally on this patch. And
I think they played it week 2 or something.
Exactly. We're just, why are you doing that? It's simply because they don't have large, effective champion pools. They must go back to these pocket picks. But as things like Kled and Gnar, Sejuani all come back into rotation of being played, suddenly Team WE look a lot cleaner, because while they haven't learned new tricks, the ones that they do know, they're pretty damn good at.
Luckily for Mystic, I mean, champions like Ashe as well as Ezreal, 2 champions he's been known for in the past, are still in the current meta, so we can still pick those up and work as effectively as other AD carries on 8-13.
I mean, frankly, Mystic has probably been the most flexible of Team WE in terms of fitting in this new meta, because he plays things like the Orianna and Swain. But round 2,
another fight over Rift Herald. Sia's going to try and dash in nice and quickly. Caster taking quite a bit of damage, but doesn't get taken down. 9/7, but he's about to go Mega. Xiaohu as well as Let Me get knocked into a wall. Teleport's going to bring a few more into the fight as Rakan jumps in. Big knockout to start this fight for RNG, and they're going to start chasing down multiple members of WE. 9/7 in trouble. Mystic falls as well. Started to look like a great fight for WE, but RNG clean up.
beautifully done by the one true support Ming there, making sure they got a multiple man Rakan knockup, and now you're starting to see the pieces of how RNG's composition really comes together. This is the 3rd time, I believe, that they played the Cho'Gath Rakan combo, and while it's not laning together this time around, you can see how devastating it'll be in the bounce house, the silence, just the zone control that you have in front of your 5v5.
Able to turn around that fight at Rift Herald. We've been talking about RNG as well as WE quite holistically, so let's tunnel in on this match, because earlier we talked about the early game for WE looking quite strong. In fact, Mystic was ahead of Able by a significant amount of CS, and WE held on to about 1,000 to 2,000 gold lead for most of the match. RNG have now been able to swing it back around. It's 1,000 gold in their favor. Sorry for the little PowerPoint presentation there, but we bring you the actual replay of that last fight.
And I'd like to show you in this PowerPoint presentation why you still don't screw around with RNG. The 5v5 power of their composition, especially when they're all together, is very potent. And like we were talking about, it was Ming who was really the true hero here. I'm so happy that Ming is finally getting the recognition that he's been starved for so long, because he proves that he doesn't just have to stand next to Uzi to be a god. He's standing next to Able right now. He's been playing with both Let Me, Xiaohu, and Zatai in that bottom lane. It doesn't matter who you stick this guy next to, he's actually just a damn good support.
And around Rift Rivals, we talked about, is he the best support in the LPL? Has he taken Maker's crown? So if you think yes, then who could be a better addition for the RNG roster than what they have right now? It seems like they have the best from every role.
I'm going to say Uzi.
Let's take a look at this small skirmish first before we can continue that conversation. Caster gets jumped on, pops the subjugates, able to heal back up. I mean, with Uzi in that roster, Uzi and Ming, then you've got Let Me to try to choose from Caster, MLXG, and Xiaohu. Is there anyone you can actually take from a different team and be like, this would be a big upgrade?
I think right now, Rookie because of Xiaohu's current form. But yeah, that was one of the reasons why RNG are still considered a super team for us right now. One of 2 in the LPL, and just speak to the size and grandeur of it. But here's a big fight.
Super team's looking for that fight. 694 saves Mystic from Ming's initial engage. Ming actually in trouble, taking a lot of damage from Condi, but look at the bottom side where the Tribush is. There's a flank coming in from Let Me, gets to the back lines. WE slowly falling in this fight, but Able and Ming are both dead for RNG. Now, a strictly 3-on-3. Sia as well as 9/7, the damage dealers for Team WE. Xiaohu as well as Let Me left up for RNG, but both teams will disengage with the bottom lane for both sides dying.
And I'm going to call it as I see it. The fact that Team WE managed to disengage from that fight was a pincer maneuver attempted from RNG. You know, if Ming and Able had been able to scrape out of that, maybe it turned sideways, but grabbing hold of the Infernal, especially on this composition, huge win for them. So the primary issue is just the deep teleport from Let Me on the bottom side, whereas 957 gets the immediate teleport inside the pit, and then it's able to jump onto the back line, kill and push Able out. So by the time that Let Me does join, 957 has already done what his team needed.
I mean, it's one of the big reasons why AD carries were starting to phase out at the start of the summer split meta. With teleports being so rampant, a simple flank would be enough to take down the squishy AD carries. Especially this early into the match. Mystic tried to be saved by 694, not going to happen. But a very even trade between RNG as well as WE. This match is almost dead even. RNG were able to take 1,000 gold lead, and that's all they've been able to hold on to, which is the simple turret advantage they have right now.
And the other thing that is dead even is that if you don't include Demacia Cup, the all-time record since RNG have existed, so 2015, between RNG and Team WE is actually 15-15. Now, I played a fun experiment where I was talking to my producer and just kind of asking people around the studio what they thought it would be, and almost everyone heavily weighted it towards RNG. And I understand that in the current timeline, RNG are kind of the hot thing right now.
Yeah.
But you can never discount the legacy of this type of rivalry. And it really has become a rivalry for Team WE since they started meeting repeatedly in 2016, 2017, taking down RNG for their first LPL championship.
Well, it seems like we fast-forwarded a little bit there. So we went for a bit of a history lesson, but somehow invented a time machine.
Now we're just in the future.
We're 37 minutes into this match. WE 8 kills, RNG 9 kills. RNG with Baron. But the game is still dead even. Still about 2,000 gold, which separates these two teams. 37 minutes into the match means nothing.
And to be frank, the game is doing all the work for me, Fish, because this is the future that we live in. While it is 15-15 historically, everyone should still be waiting this matchup against RNG. They are the best team in the world, and even in their most recent faults, you know, falling down to the likes of FPX, RNG are still a force to be trifled with, especially bringing Abel back onto the roster. So I'm not terribly surprised to see them in this position.
They've actually been able to catch out Condi here. Flashes away from Cho'Gath, but Ming jumps in with the initiation. Sia trying to go for the assassination. Gets Abel down very low. WE now trying to disengage. 694 saves Mystic for the first time. Kiting back as Ash. Let Me gets the first kill onto 957, but Caster's going to fall. Mystic with great positioning gets Xiaohu. That's the double kill for Ash. Turning around onto Let Me as well. The Cho'Gath's going to fall. WE fight back to front against RNG.
And they make me eat my words. History will repeat itself. This is why you must look at the past. You must learn from it, because even though Team WE are sitting 2-8, you can never lose faith in this organization. Time and time again, default to trust. They know what they're doing. They've rebuilt their legacy when they went to semifinals of Worlds, and now with Carso joining the roster, they say, no, 2018 is not done for us yet, and they pull the game back from RNG.
WE moving over towards Elder Dragon right after that fight as well. It just seems too fitting that this team that used to be so centered around the Elder Dragon picks it up after a one-team fight against RNG. And RNG, they've been slipping so much recently. And this was a fight where they continued to do so.
And you know, when I saw Xie force Abel out to the side of this fight, I'm like, you know, I think that's the wrong move. I think LeBlanc needs to be with his team. He's a big center of the damage. But the fact that Mystic finds his confidence, knows that there's no more CC or abilities to catch up onto him, plants his feet, and immediately just starts turning around on the damage, having the fully stacked Q, was just marvelous to watch.
That replay just felt so off though. If you took away the nameplates, I would not have guessed that is RNG, because if there was Uzi playing the Ezreal there, there's no way they leave him that far away from the squad as they go for a skirmish.
Yes.
Yeah. So as much as Ming's been working well with Abel, been working well with Xiaohu as well as the two top laners for RNG, just seems like there's a bit of a disconnect between whoever they field, whoever it hasn't been their star player of Uzi. WE now with Elder Dragon continue pushing.
And kind of going back to this idea that I feel like Team WE actually got kind of patched in as the 8-13 meta has come back around to champions like the Ashe, like the Sejuani, like the Gnar, because ultimately that's all Team WE play. But if they get to play this composition, this has been their bread and butter. They are one of the best teams in the world at executing front to back, and that's what you'll continuously see. And so RNG, they had the Baron, they had their moment, but they chose to try to feed into Team WE, and they're just too practiced at it.
Well, now they don't have the Elder Dragon. They have to defend against the 3-elemental Elder that's been picked up. Xiaohu already forced to half health, has the Sanguine Ball as well as use the Protoball to get back to safety. In fact, everyone from RNG is being chipped away at in between the inhibitor as well as the inner turret. Forced to retreat towards their base, and WE are going to try and break it.
I do want to say huge credit to the fact that the arrow hit Xiaohu, because Vladimir at this point is their safest and most consistent form of wave clear right now. They need the Vladimir and the Cho'Gath both there so they can feel comfortable stepping up to the wave and trying to force off this siege. So the fact that the arrow hit the Vladimir, chunked him out, meant that it was just that much easier to make sure that RNG were never going to find a counter engagement with the Hemoplague not on the map.
Good timing as well, because both Xiaohu's cleanse is currently down. Abel's picked cleanse up for himself in this match. Difficult to deal with the long-range initiations of an Ashe of a Sejuani, even the likes of 957 as well, Sia packing some crowd control themselves.
Which is a great point, Fish, because it then reminds us why it's so important that Abel cannot be separated. Because how RNG's composition works is they must have their tank line in front of them and then allow Ezreal to spell fling. But here comes the engagement.
Another fight. Sia just jumped into the back lines, and RNG able to collapse onto Mystic, killing the AD carry to start the fight. Condi's been separated as well, tries to lock down the rest of RNG, but Xiaohu's slowly collapsing to the back line. Sia still wants to go for an assassination, but a good repel coming out from RNG. They stop the siege from WE.
And that's the Let Me special. He says, front to back, no. I'm going to flash, I'm going to feast, I'm going to kill your ADC instantaneously. That's worse though, Team WE. What they're trying to do is grab the creep wave and pull it away. Now what RNG want to do here is, because they only have 2 creeps, they want to tank up for them. As long as Team WE can get these away, I think the siege might die here, but the cannon creep is still alive.
They're going to be able to take that one down. So without minions, the turrets get fortification. It's much more difficult for RNG to take those down. So WE do a good job of killing all the minions before they get towards the base.
And now the trick is to be that obnoxious mosquito to dissuade them from the Baron. But Cho'Gath is going to have Feast back up. He's now into the pit. I don't think that there's any hope for Team WE here, minus a miracle play from Condi.
There is teleport for Mystic as well as ultimate for 694 to try and jump in, but Baron's already so low. Doesn't get taken away. Abel's able to secure that one for RNG. Condi, the son of Baron, falls inside the Baron pit as one by one WEE members are starting to fall. 694 is next. Mystic gets delivered. Special delivery from that overdriver as RNG take Baron and a team fight.
And they immediately look for the teleport bottom, and it's Let Me who's leading the charge. Huge credit to him. The only reason they're in this position is because he decided to flash forward and to just smash Mystic in that backline with Feast.
With that, now RNG going to try and push in the bottom lane. Sia as well as 957 are doing what they can to delay RNG, to pull the minions away from this turret. Sia skirting with death once again. 957's about to go mega. Xiaohu trying to stop them. They've now split apart RNG. 4 members pushing towards the base with 4 caster minions pushing in. Mystic 20 seconds away from respawn.
And the most important thing is, again, that Let Me is here. Oh, he got the creep wave!
He got it! Sia's able to trim out that creep wave. A one cannon boy is slowly walking into the base. Xiaohu's been able to take down 957. Sia has to kill that cannon once again to stop the fortification. RNG are going to have to retreat shortly because Condi's going to come back up. Mystic's going to join him as well. 3 on 4. Arrow gets thrown out.
They have to win here.
Mystic looking for the fight. Sia jumps in. Me going to go for the reinitiation. Xiaohu going to join in, but Abel gets the first kill onto Sia. 694 has to save Mystic on top of the fountain, but separated by Pillar. Wants to cut this one back. Not going to happen. Abel with the triple kill, and RNG will take down Team WE. They take game 1.
And the Kings strike first. We said at the very beginning, this is Kings versus Emperors. Of course, modern day, it is the rule of RNG right now. Their era really started in 2016, and it has been consecutive until 2018. But flashes of brilliance from Team WE. This is still a best of 3. We are in the heart of Xi'an, the home arena for WE, and I hope that that fire continues and they don't just get rolled over by the master RNG.
And I'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties. I know we had a bit of a slideshow. We teleported into the future to begin this match and then jumped way forward ahead once again. But you can see from the snippets of that match, even when WE were falling behind, the crowd that was at Xi'an was still cheering for them. And all the way till the end, it was back and forth between these two teams.
I mean, you effectively just got the abridged season. You don't even need to look at the highlights. We did all the work for you. You got all the good parts.
All the good parts of that match. But RNG eventually pick up the win there. This was after WE were able to win a team fight against RNG, go towards Elder Dragon, pick up that massive objective, and still couldn't siege effectively against RNG.
And an issue was overextending themselves. I think that the real turning point was when Let Me had his flash up and available, so maybe some miscommunication about Team WE not tracking those cooldowns, because you must always be aware that the Cho'Gath will be able to flash into the backline, that all he needs to do is hit one button. Let Me manage to hit multiple buttons, and you just delete your primary damage source, which, looking at that graph, you knew was going to be the Ashe. 51.4k is nothing to sneeze at, but you know, maybe it's a situation where you're just not thinking, you haven't played a Cho'Gath in a while, and so it just doesn't cross your mind, but unfortunate that it ended the way that it did.
Yeah, highest damage in the team, highest damage in the game for Sia picking up Ashe. He's had a phenomenal performance for WE since he's come back into the roster. Unfortunately, in this match against RNG, it just wasn't enough. And we saw the moments of mistakes that were made by RNG in a couple of team fights, leaving Abel alone, butchering a couple of the small skirmishes and being where they weren't supposed to be a few times, but still, holistically, they played the back half of that match sound. They're able to defend well against WE's push, wait out the Elder Dragon, and fight back when the time presented itself.
And again, if we're not even just looking at the late game, but also looking at the early game, it's so important that Team WE aren't falling behind. The narrative must change for them. Like, I understand that they grabbed hold of the Elder Dragon. That looked like it was going to be, you know, with the spirit of Elder Dragon behind us, Team WE will find their ground again. But Team WE aren't falling behind in early games, not by massive goal deficits that they did in the past. So good growth and evolution is happening from the team, but it is their inability to execute on the 5v5s, which is something that they were known for so heavily in the past. So you have to have faith that eventually it'll click again.
But that's really scary because even if we're looking at teams like Invictus Gaming, who we commonly have a very similar criticism, which is they can't quite handle 5-on-5s at the moment, and saying that that's a huge reason for them not being as successful as a team like RNG and not taking it all the way to the finals during Spring Split. That's even scarier to say that WE are facing the same problems, and they've only picked up 2 wins in the LPL.
But it's about the consistency of the fights. So I would say that Invictus Gaming cannot teamfight, but they've never been able to teamfight. It's just always been a huge Achilles heel for them. Whereas Team WE, just for whatever reason, they have individual underperformers that are kind of peaking at different times, maybe some synergy issues. It makes sense when you look at their roster because they're constantly changing it through. So I have more faith that Team WE will begin to shore up some of their team fighting weaknesses and be able to close these games because they are doing a decent job staying even with a lot of the top teams.
So if they've been able to solidify their roster, running with the 4 members that we saw from Worlds last year, as well as 694 as their support, work on their team fighting, do you think that there is enough time to fix these 2 things and try and make an actual playoff run this split, or is this something that I have to try and fix now and hope to use in the next split?
It's crazy because I actually went in and I started digging into championship points because Team WE did make playoffs in spring, but they only walked away with 10 championship points. And what's hard about the LPL is because our top teams are so consistent, if you qualify for the regional qualifiers, you're only competing for the 3rd spot, which means that dreams will break for one of 3 teams, Invictus Gaming, Rogue Warriors, or WE. And this is under the assumption that it's going to be RNG, EDG as representatives again, which, I mean, that can change. Maybe Rogue Warriors, maybe IG make that massive miracle run and they take the auto-qualified spot, but let's be real. So for Team WE, what that means is their only shot at redeeming themselves, at trying to appear at Worlds, at being an elite team, they can't just make playoffs, they have to make a very deep run in playoffs. They need to make at least 5th, if not 4th, to have enough championship points to qualify themselves into the regional qualifiers to even fight for that last spot. So if your question is, you know, is this new roster enough to get them over the line? It's not just getting them over the line, they have to like sprint through the line. They gotta crush the line.
They can't really rely on those championship points, so they can either win the damn LPL or fight through the actual qualification bracket to take that 3rd seed for the LPL moving into the World Championship. Would be a familiar territory for Team WE trying to fight out of the play-ins once again if they were able to do just that. But they have to fight their way out of this match first. And after that first game victory for RNG, Ming is able to pick up MVP on his performance in the bottom lane as the support.
The one true support. I'm actually just happy to see it from Ming. He came through clutch in multiple team fights. Still, I think that Let Me's flash was the real big turner, but Ming was right on his heels, also getting into that backline. So nothing to sneeze at. 1-1-18.
95% kill participation. We've said that he's the best support in the LPL, trying to take, or has taken, Mako's crown as the best support. But what is it about this man? What is the X factor that Ming brings to RNG?
It's very different play styles, and I think that why for that Ming has... Wow, went full robot there. Why for me, Ming has overtaken Mako is the fact that he can play multiple styles now. It used to be that Mako was your hard initiator, your tactician, that if he controlled everything, it was almost Mata-esque. That if you give him a champion like Thresh, like Alistar, that's when Mako shines. Whereas Ming was almost the opposite. He's the Jannas, he's the Karmas, he's the guy who will flash in front of the arrow and catch it for you, like sacrifice everything for Uzi. But now Ming has showcased that, no, you know, I have this Recon pick. You cannot give it to me. That I can play the disengage as well as the hard engage better than Mako can play disengage and hard engage. And that's the difference.
Also, listening to the team communications for both EDG as well as RNG during the mic checks that we have, you see Mako talks a lot when he's playing with EDG and Hara as kind of the backup voice at the moment. Whereas for RNG, it's kind of the opposite. Ming does talk a lot, but he always feels like that backup voice when it's either Uzi or someone like Castle or Emma like She who is talking and making most of the shot call. So I always look towards Ming and watch his mechanical plays and the actual micro plays that he makes in teamfights, because those look very strong, and it seems to solidify himself as one of the best supports just from his mechanics alone.
And again, do not take this as just because I think that Ming is the best support that suddenly Mako is a garbage support.
Oh, no way.
Again, it gives credit to the fact that if Mako is shining and Ming is able to outshine him, then you're blinded by the talent that we have in the LPL in that support position.
And the LPL has always been able to find bottom lane talents, what they excel at. But that's just the first match of this best of 3 series. We're going to go into a very quick break. We'll be back with Game 2 in just a bit.
让我们把故事传唱下去，继续书写 RNG 的传说。